This is actually about number 4, I would gather, on God's eternal library. Number 3, okay? And we were involving ourselves with looking at some of these books, and I had many questions asked from several different sources on some of the things that we had covered thus far. And so last Sunday night, I sort of took the time to answer these questions, and what I'm going to do is just review, for those who might not have been here, some of the things that we talked about. First of all, we had talked about the fact that in God's library, He has His Word, the Bible, which He has magnified above His name. Now, that is a strange verse of Scripture to actually put a book or a document above the very person of God Himself. But the illustration is simply this: God is not above the law. The law, doing right things in a right way. And by the way, I'm always thrilled when somebody actually copies my notes and quotes me. But that is good stuff. That's profound. That's the only thing God recognizes is His proper protocol. And this lets us know that He Himself is not above the law, that He follows a system of protocol known as His Word or the law, and you can always expect Him to do the right thing in the right way. He is not above the law. He'll not compromise the law. He'll not stretch the truth in order to make it fit for Him. He will always conform to that system. But then we noted the second illustration actually lets us know that the law is inside of Him. This is the external here. And this is the internal here. Now, why do we emphasize this? Simply because I am that I am is the very system of cycling Bible doctrine that we're required to do for a successful Christian life. That's where I get that. I just didn't sort of suck it out of the end of my thumb. And I use that illustration. I always thought it was crude, but Pastor Moki likes it. He also says, get it from Fluffyhead's notebook. And I always figured if he gave me a test, I'd be able to put those two things down on the test. I got it out of the end of my thumb, brother. I got it from Fluffyhead's notebook. But no, actually, I got it from God Himself. God is not above the law. Therefore, He conforms to an external system of government. He has rules and regulations that He Himself submits to in order to live a life. He is consistent with this law. But the second thing, if you read the Bible, time and again it says, I want to put my law in their what? Heart. So you say, well, does God have the law in His heart? Yes. I am that I am is the cycling of Bible doctrine. He uses all of His being on the one hand, which He is spirit and truth. It simply means that He has internalized the law. And His willing means that with His will, I am that I am involves His being and willing, that He wills to conform to this set of circumstances. So God will never do anything that is contrary, incompatible, or inconsistent with the law. Not only is it external to Him and He submits to it, but He's internalized it. It is spirit and truth. That is what He is. And so therefore, in any situation, if He wants an answer to what is right, you know what He does? He thinks it to the issue. That's what I am that I am is really all about. He lives to think doctrine. So, if you want to be like God, what do you have to do? Same thing that God does. You have to internalize Bible doctrine. Now, it's good to study it, and this is what many churches do. They simply speak on the external book itself. Now, you know that our system has to do with inculcation. That means you go over it in your mind, over it, so that, just like Jesus Christ, when you are tempted or tested in life, You bring the pertinent verse to the issue. That's what God does, and that's what that means. He has it in his mind when he needs it. In other words, he doesn't have to go back to the giant Bible on the coffee table and say, I know it's in there someplace, I made a note. He simply brings it to mind. He thinks it to the issue. And so, therefore, that's what we need to do. And when I saw this years back now, I began to change my ministry to conform us to the thinking, the very character of God himself. So, we externalize it, yes, we talk about it, but it's with the view to internalizing it so that at your workplace, somebody says something to you and you want to snap back at them, you think, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. God's going to take care of this jaybird, and I don't have to worry about it. That doesn't mean you can't stand up for yourself, but you must be gracious and compatible with the law in so doing. You're a student, and you haven't studied very much, and you you know that you're a guy, you're a football player, and you're just a little on the lazy and slow side here, but you want to play football, and you know that this pretty gal to your left has all of the answers, and you just want to take a peek and get so that the coach will not yell at you for failing. It reminded me last night on the news, they said that there was a team, I forget what it was, but 9 of their players got put out because they weren't academically qualified. They should have had somebody sitting next to them so that they could have peeked over there and looked at the answer. Now, anyway, but what do you do if you're a Christian? Well, if you didn't study, you've got to fail honorably. Thou shalt not steal is the issue at question. That's her answer, not my answer, and so therefore I cannot take it. Now, we said all that then to say, with regard to time, there are 10 dispensations, 7 human dispensations, 1 angelic, 2 eternal. 2 start back here with God himself, when there wasn't anybody, and here it's God and all those who have exercised plus V are positive volition in him. Anybody in here can exercise 2 things, either negative volition or positive volition. Now, what does that tell us then? God made some decrees whenever he created the universe. 4 of them are represented on our overhead. They are 4 essential things. Christianity today is polarizing toward covenant theology and extreme Calvinism, or over on this side to Arminianism, which simply means that man can undo the work of God. Man can believe and then disbelieve. Man can get saved and lost and saved and lost. And then over here, man is going to get saved whether he wants to or not. That's the Calvinistic viewpoint. And actually, the true viewpoint is what's known as Biblicism. It's not Calvinism, it's not Arminianism, it's Biblicism. Now, what do Biblicists believe? By the way, if you're here, that's what you are. You didn't know that, did you? That's what I'm teaching. That God, in his eternal decrees, decreed 4 things. Now, there are many other facets to this decree, but with regard to you and the angels, his creatures shall be free moral agents. Now, in order to be a free moral agent, you have to conclude something. That in the decrees, God is going to allow his creatures to choose opposite of him if they so desire. Otherwise, they're not truly free. But in that they're moral agents, if they do choose contrary to the law, that he as the sovereign, supreme judge of the universe can condemn them and punish them for so doing. That's what free moral agency means. So, if you have the right to choose, and God absolutely does not twist your arm and make you choose it, then you are free. But that you are responsible for your decisions is seen in that word moral. If you decide to choose contrary to the right thing, contrary to God's law, he has a right to punish you. So, God decided to permit the choice between here and here, the choice to sin or oppose him if the creature wanted to. Now, who was the first creature to decide to do that? Satan. Who was the second creature to decide? Well, Satan and the 1/3 of the angels. Eve. The third creature was Adam. And from then on, we have the human dispensation. So you have one dispensation in between here, that's the angelic, and then 7 human dispensations. This is called a testing time or a probationary time. The question is, what will you do? When God puts the issue to you, will you believe on Christ or reject him? Probation. You're free, you're moral. Where are you going to stand? Are you going to obey the gospel, obey the law, and believe on his Son, or reject him? Now, that is where we get the idea that the worst people in the world are Christ rejectors. You see, Satan has confused our minds to the issue. He says that the worst people in the world are drug pushers, child abusers, and so forth. Are they bad? Well, yes, they're bad people, of course. But the point is, they're not the worst people. Lucifer was the highest angel. He neither pushed drugs, abused children, or did any of those things. In fact, he wants to set up a kingdom that is counterfeiting Christ, that has an amount of righteousness in it. That's the utopia where we're headed right now with the world. That's what Antichrist, the mark of the beast, is all about. He wants to counterfeit Christ and show himself to be better than Christ. But what did he do? In eternity past, he rejected the authority of Jesus Christ. He said he's incompetent. I can do it better than he can. I can run my own life better than Christ can tell me what to do. And he was bad because of that. He goes to hell because of that. Adam, the very same thing. You know what Adam did? He ate a piece of fruit. Not all that bad, is it? Whether it was an apple or not, probably not. But he ate a piece of fruit. But behind it was, you're disobeying the command of God. Dying, you'll die. Why do people die? Who are the worst people in the universe? The worst people are Christ rejectors. Now that also leads us to believe that the worst people in the world are religious people who tell other people that they can have a relationship with God in a way contrary to simply faith in Christ. Now, that's where we get the idea. If we clean up, let's clean up all of the slums and the scum of the world. But you know where we're going to start? With every single church that doesn't teach the truth of the gospel. They're the worst people. So, because they confuse the true issue of how you get an eternity future, positive volition toward Jesus Christ, believing he is all that the Father says he is. Now, that therefore gives us 3 more conclusions. 1, since God decided to permit sin, he decreed reality in the divine decree, which means that any creature and all of his antecedents, anything prior to his existence, the act in question shall be what they are. God is not going to change reality for you or anyone else. Oh God, I didn't study. Oh God, infuse this information in my brain. So that's nonsense. Oh God, I haven't been giving properly and so forth. And all of a sudden, boy, pow, God hits you in the paycheck, pow, and another one. And, oh God, turn it around. Help me to win the lottery and so forth. He's not going to change reality. He's not going to do that for you. That's wishful thinking. That's making him out to be a genie. You're trying to rub the lamp because you're now in trouble. Well, why are you in trouble? Because you broke his law to begin with. That's why you're in trouble. All right? So that If you decide to break his law, all the conditions of the act in question shall be what they are. If you break his law, you're a cosmic criminal. Plain and simple. That's the condition. If you break the law in the United States of America, relatively speaking, from this to the greatest, the murder and what have you, are you not what you are? Absolutely. You might get off judicially. You might bribe the judge. You might pull the wool over the eyes of the jury, but that doesn't make you any different than what you are. If you did the crime, the conditions of your heart are what they are. Now, the thing with God, he knows your heart. He knows you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're awake. So be divinely good for goodness sake, because all the conditions of the act in question are what they are. He won't change reality for you. And lastly, and here is the thing, I had a question on, if God has all of our members written in a book, what about a baby conceived when a person was raped? Well, because he decreed reality, and when the sperm meets the egg, there is a potential for life, all the consequences of the act in question shall be what they are. You see, we want to do the act in question. We want to sin, and then we don't want God to erase the consequences. And might I say, in the vernacular of the street, it don't work that way. That's not what it is. That's not reality. It's not going to happen. If you do it, the consequences are put in motion. It is a cause and effect thing. So that, for example, when Adam sinned, did he die spiritually, just as God said? Yeah, that was a consequence. When he did it, God said, you're going to die, and he died. Did he die eventually? Dying, you'll die? Yes, he is. Adam is in the grave. He's gone. And everybody subsequent to Adam is going to face the consequences of Adam's sin. For by one man sin entered the world, and death by sin. So death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. Therefore it's appointed unto man once to die. That is a consequence. And you're not going to get around it unless you're caught up in the rapture. Okay, now, that brought us to the four wills of life. I'm just simply going to go over these again because I've got a point here to make before we move into the next point. By the way, we're going to talk about murder here in just a little bit. Here is the Father. This is will number 1. Now, the question was asked, what about a baby? In rape, yeah, God included in his consequences, in the decrees, that if a man would take it upon himself to force himself upon a woman, that the potential for life is there, even though it's a criminal act. If you can take a life in a criminal act of murder, you can conceive a life in a criminal act of rape. So the father may be legitimate, illegitimate, doesn't matter. If the act in question occurred, the consequence is there, which leaves a potential for life. Okay? Over here is the mom. This is will number 2. Now, again, the mom might be a prostitute. Prostitutes conceive even though the act that they are committing is an illegitimate act. God does not say to the prostitute, well, because it's an illegitimate act, I'm not going to allow you to have the children, or not give you the potential of having children. No. Once she submits to the act in question has consequences, conditions, repercussions. And so therefore there can be conception. But even if it's so-called legitimate sex in the bonds of holy matrimony, regardless, there is a body that is formed. Now you will remember our studies on conception. How is life conceived? A man and a woman get together, hopefully in the bonds of matrimony, and they conceive. And what happens? A body is conceived with two empty containers. There is no soul life nor spiritual life in the womb. None. There is biological life only. Now, I know what you're thinking. When the sweet little thing, a darling, a boy or girl, kicks and moves and jumps at mommy's voice and daddy's voice and so forth in the womb, they're responding to you. No, it's biological life simply responding to the strokes and the environment of love. Now, I'm not saying don't do that, of course. Sing all you want. Talk to it all you want. Feel the belly all you want. But all it is biological life. When the biological life comes forth from the womb, inside of the biological life there is a format. And that format is given genetically so that the child is going to be a combination of the genius of the mom and the dad. And of course, the combination of the beauty or handsomeness of the mama's dad. But that's all bodily. You get a format. Soul life comes from God. So that once that person comes forth from the womb and is born, the next thing God does is say, okay, nature being what it is, I said that I would give bodies life. He breathes life into the soul of that individual, whoever it is. But now, there's a third container there that contains the spiritual life. Why does he have to stop short there? Because there's a little marker in that person's body. And I've discussed this with many of you, especially those that have the wee little ones. It's sure difficult because the old sin nature is wrapped up in such a cute little form and fashion. But it's there. Now, to show you that you must be serious about that old sin nature there, I'll show you how serious God is about it. It doesn't matter how cute and cuddly that little thing is, how proud the parents are of it, and you should be. You should love it to pieces, boy or girl. God is so serious about the old sin nature that when he sees it in the cell structure of the human body, he will breathe in soul life, but what won't he breathe in? Spiritual life. That's how serious God is about the old sin nature. He sees in that little one the potential for the destruction of the universe. Because in the cell structure of that little one, and by the way, it's you and me. We were once little too. I know with regard to me, you never thought it in those terms. But I had a mom and a dad who loved me and oohed and awed over me and so forth. But that didn't change the fact that I was spiritually lost. That I had to have a time in my life for a fourth will. Okay. Now that fourth will means that I saw myself as a hopeless sinner, and I saw Jesus Christ as the only alternative, the only solution or option for my sins, and I believed from this point on, and God then did another thing. He breathed into my human spirit spiritual life. So, every person born, therefore, because of the sign of the old sin nature in the body, is born physically alive, soulishly alive, but spiritually dead. All right, now, that brings us then to some things that we've talked about before. Here is Adam before the fall, in both of these cases. Here is Adam after the fall, and of course, we are in Adam. Before the fall, Adam had three things that were alive: body, soul, and spirit. Now, the thing that he did not have was the grace apparatus. Why didn't he have it?
He didn't need it. His environment was perfect. He was perfect. The only thing with potential imperfection was what? His volition. So that's why, whenever I saw this, the idea is God didn't do anything else but tell Adam the truth and said, look, if you eat of this tree, you're going to die in two ways, spiritually and physically, and then the ultimate is eternal death away from me. The choice was up to Adam. There's the free moral agency, because Adam is not going to be taken into eternity future unless Adam makes the right volitional choice. So the whole issue, say about getting people to church, and you got all thousands of people. Yeah, but there are pastors who do not make volition the issue. You need to go to a church where they teach the truth. Forget about anything else. Oh, yes, but they've got this group and they do this. And yes, there is a bona fide place for things. We talked about that just this morning. Absolutely, for fellowship in a church. But that is not the centrality of our fellowship. Other churches are building their congregations on programs. Things to do to get people excited, make them feel good, and so forth. And all they do is numb their spiritual sensibilities to the truth. What is the truth? That's the important thing. And are you there at church because God said to come to church and that's the truth? Or are you there for another reason? If you have an ulterior motive, your church membership, and you're going to church, you might as well go down to the lake or something. You might as well do something else at that time, because volition is the issue. I got to speaking here and I lost my sense of time. Okay. I thought, oh my, truth is, it's time for a break. Not yet. Not yet. He didn't need the grace apparatus. But once he fell, what happened? I put the wrong color there. Once he fell, he rejected the spiritual in favor of the physical, the material. That is why we say that Adam was spiritually dead. Now, where did we just see this before? Just a little bit ago, the last frame on the four wills. God will not give eternal life until that person himself chooses it. No longer is he going to give this thing like Lucifer and Adam. He's going to give them these three things automatically and a great position. If you want to be part of a perfect environment, you've got to make the choice. Now, here is your life. This is the real you when you come out of the womb. You're alive and you have now soul life. But if you want to have a relationship with God, you've got to be born again through simple faith in Christ. We'll be talking about that more in just a little bit. I'm just actually reviewing some doctrines we should know. But because these things are not inculcated, and because we are inundated by other voices hitting us, television, radio, books, and so forth, we tend to lose sight of the real objectives in the Christian way of life and what reality is. So sometime between your birth and your death, you have to rectify something. What is that? The condition, your birth, that makes you just like Adam at his fall. We are all at birth facsimiles of Adam at his fall. When he ate of the tree, this was his condition. When we were born, we are sons of Adam, and that's how we look, like him at the fall. So therefore, here is the issue. God puts on, this is called common grace, an apparatus. This is the apparatus that is either accepted or rejected at your salvation experience. What is this apparatus? And by the way, most folks reject this apparatus. They have the foggiest idea of even what it is, and could even care less. And yet, That's how you got saved. God put an apparatus that first of all freed you from the old sin nature. Everything you do in life, if you are unsaved and not spirit-filled, is from the source of the old sin nature. Your human nature, in effect, is so contaminated by the old sin nature that your volition is controlled by it. Now, here's what happened. On the one side, Adam had in his conscience fact, the law of God written in the heart. On the other side, we'll just make this F1, he had feeling, or what the material could do. What happened when Adam sinned? The same thing that happens when you sin, or when doctrine is not important in your life. The central nervous system backs up into the soul in the realm of your emotions. And you think, this is going to make me better than everybody else if I have this possession and that possession. I can be like God, better than God. And human or creature arrogance begins to puff up in your soul. Where does that come from? Your emotions. Or the idea, if it feels good, do it. Just simply do anything imaginable, possible, take drugs, whatever, if it's going to make the body feel good. So the old sin nature comes back and it invades the soul. Through the realm of the emotions, it grabs a hold of the soul at the volition, and the volition says, instead of choosing for the facts as they are, I'm going to choose for the feeling. And every time you have that situation where feeling, or F2, revolts against the volition and takes charge, where feeling is paramount, then you have a situation where you are denying spiritual things. Now, on the cross of Calvary, do you suppose the Lord felt good? I don't. He had his back beaten, his front beaten, his feet and hands nail pierced. He had a crown of thorns on his head, cat o' nine tails on his back. He had been up all night. He hadn't eaten. The only thing they gave him was vinegar to drink on the cross. He did not feel good on the cross. Now, that is the prime example of what I'm talking about here. Feelings were not all that important to Christ. He hurt in the maximum sense of the word, but you know what he did? He focused on the facts. And he never let feelings revolt. Now, not that feelings are not a part, but they must always be subservient. We talked about a chain of command. They must always be subservient in your volition to the facts. Because the facts are that all antecedents, all conditions, and all consequences of the act in question shall be what they are. If it's a right decision, it's honored as a right decision and consequences follow. If it's a wrong decision, it is seen as a wrong decision and consequences follow. To choose for feeling over the facts in the matter is to make a wrong decision. You might feel good temporarily. There's pleasure in sin for a season, but you sow to the wind and reap the whirlwind of God's judgment.